Good evening. Good evening. God bless you. Good evening. Give everyone a minute to come on in. We are back. Yes, God bless you. God bless you. Good evening to everyone who is joining us. We were on our summer break and we are back, and we're so excited in the upcoming weeks for the things that we have prepared to share with you. Thank you for joining us. Hope that you've had a safe and blessed summer as well. And just God bless you, everybody. Just come on in. Let's get it going. Welcome back to Let's Talk. As I said, we've been on break, but during the summer, we came up with some topics that we hope that are going to be interesting and thought provoking, and are going to really be a blessing to our listening audience. One of the topics that was a big success in our first year's endeavor with Let's Talk was the series on relationships. And so we're going to be coming back for the next few weeks. And since our segment is called Let's Talk, the series is going to be called Let's Talk About Relationships. All of our different varied interpersonal relationships. Over the next weeks, we're going to be talking about unresolved conflict in relationships, boundaries, the overwhelmingly high number of single women in the church, mourning the loss of past relationships, life after divorce, what to do when we can't forgive, all of the kind of things that affect our interpersonal relationship. We're going to have some real talk about those topics and much more. So please plan on staying tuned in. Tonight, our topic, to get it all kicked off, is going to be relationship DNA. So, DNA is the fundamental, distinctive characteristics of an individual. And the philosophy then is that each relationship has their own DNA, their own fingerprint that is unique to them. I'm opening up because tonight we're going to do something a little different. With the Let's Talk so far, Pastor Connie has had guests come on where she has interviewed them on various topics. But tonight, I have the distinct pleasure to bring on Pastor Connie so that we can have some discussion about relationship DNA. So Pastor Connie's going to be on the hot seat tonight. She is pastored, mentored, counseled for the better part of her adult life. She's been married for the better part of her adult life. And so someone who has 25, 30 plus years of experience has a wealth of knowledge to give us on the topic of relationships. So without further ado, we're going to have her come on. We're going to put her on the hot seat and have her give her opinion and her wisdom about the topic. And as you're watching, if you have questions, put them in the comments, and we will do our very best to get them to her for a response. So again, without further ado, Pastor Connie, if you would come on with us.
Hey, Minister Kathy.
Hi, how are you?
We're good. It's good to be on with you tonight.
Yes, so we have for tonight, we're going to be talking about relationship DNA. Now, you are the first person that I heard coin relationships having their own DNA. And in fact, you've even talked about how they're so unique that they're almost as exclusive as a fingerprint, as unique as a fingerprint. So talk to us a bit more about that concept.
Well, I feel this. I've taken a lot of marriage classes, attended a lot of marriage seminars, and what I realized, nobody could tell me about my husband. Nobody could tell me about him in particular. And I realized I had to go to God. We're still getting feedback. Hold on. We're getting some feedback here. I want to make sure they can hear us. All right. So here's what we're running into many times in relationship. We go to a conference, we go to different workshops, and then we come home and we want to make our spouse like what we heard in the workshop. What the Lord told me is that a marriage has its own DNA, its own fingerprint. And my job was to study my husband, and his job was to study me. I have to live with him. Not the person who just taught that seminar. They can give us principles, they can give us the Word of God, but we have to come home and study our spouse.
Yes.
What do they like? What makes them tick? You know, they're just individuals that we have to study, because the Bible says number one is a mystery. How do you bring two people together and they become one if you don't study them?
Yes.
You know, and so many times relationships don't work because we believe that the scripture that talks about being unequal yoke means a sinner and a Christian. And
Yes.
it's not. It could be two Christians that are unequal yoke. Because if you live with somebody and you're in the east and he's in the west, to me that's unequal yoke. You're just roommates. So I don't believe, Kathy, that any relationship is a book outside of the Word of God that can help us understand ourselves.
Yes.
That's Kathy,
that's so good.
I don't know if
that's so good.
Kathy, when I'm talking, I don't know if you have to mute, but we're still getting feedback here. So whenever I'm talking, you may have to mute because you're at home.
Okay.
Let's see. Yeah. Okay, let's see.
Is that any better?
How do y'all hear? Oh, okay. She said mute your button for a minute. Okay, that's it. Whenever I'm talking, you're gonna have to mute your button. So let me say that again. Every relationship has its own DNA, which means I have to study my spouse. My spouse has to study me. What happens many times in relationships, we look at somebody else's relationship and we want what they have. What they have will not work for you because you're not in that relationship. You have to take time and study the person that God has given you. And a lot of times in our courtship and our dating time, we don't ask tough questions. We don't learn the person. We don't. And then you move into a house with a person that you really don't know. And then you're trying to make it work. I've watched marriages. I'm a pastor. And like you said, I've been married over 42 years. I married 20 years the first time and 22 years the second time. I've been married a long time. So I've been married, I've been divorced, I've been single mom, I'm married a sinner, married preacher. I mean, I can tell you the stories, but I've had a long list when it comes to relationship because I've been married for more than half of my life. And so when I was married to the unsaved person, I expected certain things. When I got married to a Christian, I expected certain things. And that is not always necessarily true. I still had to study either person. And in relationships are so difficult, Kathy. You can't coin them. You can't say, I like Kathy. Kathy, I like how she runs her marriage. I would like to have that. But we are looking from the outside, looking in. You understand what I'm saying? And we have no clue what it's like to wake up with your husband, what it's like to hang out with him. We're just looking from the outside, watching this because your husband is such a gentleman. He opens the door for everyone. He does all of these things. But yet still there's a part of him that just likes to be, I don't feel like doing anything today kind of person. And that's why it's so important for us to understand we have to not look at other relationships, but learn what works for me. How will my husband live with me? If I want to get married, I want this in a person, but what do they want in me? Am I willing to make the changes to be with someone that really wants to be with me? Because that's critical. Yeah.
That's real. That's so good. I want to tag and have you go a little bit deeper because I read one time a quote that said comparison is the killer of dreams. That while you're comparing what others have, you're not focused on your own gifts, your own blessings, your own potential. And so many times there's a lot of reality TV shows on now about people getting married and being in relationships. And a lot of times the women want to have like these $50,000 weddings and all of this extravagant lifestyle because they've seen it on social media or whatever. And so talk to us again about like the danger in being and comparing what you see others have with what you potentially could have.
It really is dangerous. I watch young people getting married, and they started telling other young people, "Oh, this is what it's like when you wait for the man of God that God has for you." And then I look around, and 6 months later they divorce. A year later they divorce. Nobody being married for a year can give me no instruction. Listen, you ain't even started in the marriage yet, so don't even come here. I don't go to seminars for these young people that just got married 2 weeks ago, and now they have to they know how to tell everybody how to live. It's not true, Kathy. When you meet someone, number one, before you meet anyone, you need to know yourself. And you have to be willing to say to yourself, what am I willing to live with and what am I not willing to live with? That's the first thing. Before I even consider marriage, I must make up in my mind, can I live with this, this, and this? Like somebody said to me, well, I'm not staying in this marriage because he don't have no money. That's not a reason to walk out of a marriage, because he may not have no money today. He may be a millionaire tomorrow. What did God tell you to do? When you're preparing to meet this person, did God tell you this was your spouse? You may meet a man. I can look at Bishop T.D. Jakes. I'm gonna look at him. I look at him for a minute. I've known Bishop when he was coming here to Pittsburgh years ago from Virginia preaching. He didn't have a large church at that time. He was in a storefront church, but look at him today. So you can't base a relationship on what somebody has. You have a relationship on what has God spoken to you. And number two, you're asking somebody to be something that you're not. I hear women say, I want somebody to have a car, I want somebody to have the money, and I want somebody to have this, and I want somebody to have this, and I want somebody. And my first thing to say, do you have it? You cannot put something on someone else you're not willing to do for yourself. Well, he got to come with credit. Do you have credit? Well, he got to come with a car. Do you have a car? The bottom line is we go so far from the principles of God. What about somebody that loves God, is obedient to God, loves you, cherishes you, and you all serve one another? What happened to that relationship? Nowadays, it's the biggest diamond. If you don't have a Mark and Co diamond, you ain't got a diamond. If it didn't come in a box that's glitter. Kathy, I hear so many things today that's crazy. You both can save and buy a Mark and Co diamond. You don't have to get it at the first part. Maybe this time you just get a band. You know what I'm saying? But why go into debt for a day? Most people in relationships plan for a day, but never a lifetime. They want that. They want the big wedding. They want the 10 bridesmaids. They want the groomsmen. They want the cake and the dinner. And then they wind up in a $10,000 debt. And the first year of marriage, we're spent arguing on who's going to pay it off. And we never think that marriage is bigger than a day. Marriage is bigger than I love you, because there's times in a marriage when I wake up and look at you and I don't love you. Right now, you done got on my last nerves, but I'm not here just because of love. No, I've got to lay on the principles of God, that God says that's your spouse, and you have to honor and respect him even when your feelings don't feel like it. That's true in relationship, but we don't talk about that. But we want to compare and say, listen, oh, I would love to be married to a pastor. Girl, ask me. I would love to be married to the bishop. I can tell you about quite a few of them. Now, no, I want to be married to who God wants me to be married to. That's the bottom line. Because you can look at it and think it's certain things, and it's not.
Yes. That's so good, because when you're outside on the outside looking in, the grass always looks greener. And the anointing is very attractive. You know, when you're at the height of your gifting, that looks beautiful and attractive. But what about when you're just at home with your sweats on and you're in a mood? You know, people aren't aware of those times and that kind of thing. You talked about how people don't ask a lot of questions on the front end. Often when we're dating, we're so focused on the warm fuzzies, we don't address the potential red flags, you know, things that could be a deal breaker, like your debt, your income. Some people have custody restrictions. So if the other person wanted to move, they wouldn't be able to do that, or intimacy frequency. Can you
Yes.
hit on some of those kinds of things?
Oh Lord, you done gave me a whole list there. Kathy, it's so true. We make relationships so emotional that we stop asking the true and hard questions. When you meet someone in the age, when you get over 30, not now today, even in 25, most couples getting married today already have children. And one of the things we don't ask is, how is the relationship between your children? In my second marriage, my husband had two girls. Well, when I met my husband, he was in England and had to move to America. And so in doing that, it meant we had to have green cards. We had to file paperwork. We had so much that was involved. But I knew that because I am myself a foreigner. So when I met him, we had to talk about who's going to live with who. And so my husband said, oh, my girls will not live with us. They'll just be here for college. Well, a year later, here comes the girls. They're going to live with us. And I was like, wait, that was not what you said. You said they will come for college. So I thought I had time to get to know my husband and get the blending going before the kids came. Well, a year later, the first one came, and a few years later, the second one came. And now, instead of having my two kids at home, then now we have 4 teenagers in the house, and the two girls can't stand each other because you've taken my mother and you've taken my dad, and I'm going to make you pay. That was what was happening. Nobody told me about that. So my husband coined it, and he says, Connie, I think blended families collide before they blend. He said, because ours is colliding. My daughter and my husband's first daughter didn't speak for a year in the same house. Now imagine us as parents living with that, and they're passing each other like ships in the night. And my daughter is upset. She was the only girl. She has 2 brothers, and all of a sudden, here comes you 2 girls. Why are you sitting on my mom's lap? Why you need her to counsel you all night? That is my mother. And I was like, oh Lord, nobody told us about that. Then you have to deal with the other mother. Those are my kids, and I'm not trying to steal them, but here they're not calling you mother. Never asked them to. But nobody tells you about us. So in the first year of Pastor and I getting married, if you want to hear about conflict upon conflict, I could write a book on that. That started with that. Then we also get people that write in and say to me, Pastor Connie, like you said, what about child support and all of that? Well, we had to pay that too. Even though it was far as England, we had to send money all the way there because my husband had a responsibility to his children, and I was going to make sure that we did what was the right thing to do. So, Kathy, a lot of times those things are not talked about before because and number one, I said to my husband, you might love me, but that don't mean your kids gonna love me. You in love, you excited, and we going on a honeymoon, and they looking at us like, really? I remember one time my husband's daughter said to me, wait a minute, my father left us for you? Just like that. And I was like, oops. I said, no, you better talk to him about that. What they were saying is, well, this is our dad. And all of a sudden, our dad is going across the pond for you. And to them, they couldn't understand, yeah, you're in love, but we're not in love. See, when you have a blended family, those things are not talked about, Kathy. Many times, we kind of talk about marriage counseling, premarital, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But many times, if you don't go to the right counselors who have some of the same issues that you face, they don't ask the right questions. I can't go to a counselor who has never been divorced, never gone through anything, never. And when I ask him, and when I tell him about the pain, he's telling me, oh, you can get over it. You have never experienced it. And so I really believe that we have to go to people that understand where we are in a relationship. Somebody that's never been divorced, somebody that's been married 38 years, married somebody who's the love of their life, they're excited about that person. Married 38 years, and you're trying to tell them, I'm dealing with blended families, I'm dealing with financial support, I'm dealing with child support, I'm dealing with my heart is broken. Kathy, no clue. No clue. And I'm not trying to be mean to anyone, but I've been in pastoring over 30 years, been married over 42, been a single mom, walked through a divorce. And I can tell you, The lessons I learned has been amazing because it's hard. It's very, very difficult, Kathy. And then, like you talked about frequency, that's something else. People don't talk about that in their when they're getting ready to go through their counseling. I'm sorry, when they're going through their counseling, they never take time to ask, how do you feel about intimacy and romance, and what is the frequency, and what do you like and what don't you like? Sometimes we're afraid to ask those things because we don't know what's going to be said, and I don't want to push the person away, so I'm not going to press that button. We kind of go into that kind of thing. But when you're really ready to marry someone, you need to ask all the hard questions. You need to find out, how that person feels about intimacy. Let's talk about intimacy. What part of intimacy? And this Saturday, I'm doing a workshop for women because they're asking me those questions. Pastor, in the church, what is right and what is not right? When the Bible says the bed is undefiled, what does that mean? Does that mean I can't do this and I can't do that? And I'm not going to be able to say all this on TV. But what I'm saying is there's some things that are not in the marriage bed, and there's some things that God has never told us that we couldn't do. But if you and your spouse enjoy that, then you talk about it and find out how is it going to work for us, because both of you have to be in agreement when you really want to be intimate. He can't be intimate and you poking your mouth out. That ain't intimacy. You understand what I'm saying? And he wants something a certain way and you won't give it. I remember we were counseling a couple, and the couple said to the husband, said, would you please tell my wife that what I'm saying that I want? And I said, I think she hears you, but I think that's not something she likes to do. And he was like, well, I thought when I got married, we were supposed to do anything we wanted to do. And so you're sitting there, that was never discussed. I don't even know who counseled them, but that was never discussed in the counseling.
Yeah, I feel like one of the comparison is the killer of dreams, and expectations is the killer of your heart. It's like your heart wants what it wants. You have all these expectations. Sometimes you don't even realize how unrealistic the expectations are.
Absolutely.
Especially if you've been single a long time, you've waited for a long time. Every year that you're single and in anticipation of your coming relationship, you add a little bit more expectation on to the expectations. And it doesn't take long for you to spin out. And it doesn't take long for it to all hit the fan when they're not realistic and when they haven't been talked about. One of the things that you...
Let me share this with you. When I was getting married, hit that mute button, that noise is coming out. When I was getting married, my mother-in-law came to America to visit us, and she said, will you all have any kids? And I said, yes, it's going to be called Jubilee, the church. I said, I'm 40-some years old. Ain't no kids happening here. I've already had my kids. There's nothing going to happen. We had discussed that way up front, my husband and I. There was going to be no more babies in here, no adoption, no nothing. We're just going to try to get this blended family off to college, and then we're going to go live a life. That was number one. Number two, I was doing a seminar and teaching some 35-year-olds, 30-year-olds, young ladies. And one of the things I said to them, do you realize at 30 to 35, if you're getting married, if you want to have children, you're going to have your children in the first 2 to 3 years of marriage. I said, no, have you considered this thought that if you're going to be married in 2 to 3 years, you got to make sure you have no debt when you go into this marriage. You've got to make sure them school loans are paid, because if you go into a marriage and you're getting ready to have children right away, your husband may not be able to carry the debt you brought into the marriage. So if you're going to get married at that age and you want to have children right away, you're going to have to handle this a little bit different. Well, most of them say, I never thought of that. I'm just ready to get married. I said, no, you're not ready to get married. You want to get married. Being ready to get married and wanting to get married is two different things. I want to get married, but I'm not ready to get married because, number one, I have young ladies who are going into marriage with $100,000 school loan, and they have never told their husband they have $100,000 school loan till it's time to buy a house. And then when it's time to buy a house, he finds out, wait a minute, what did you say? I have $100,000 school loan and I don't make $100,000 payroll to pay for it. And so now they want to have children. So now they're going to have baby debt, school debt, house debt, can't get a house, have to live in an apartment because we never discuss the real issues.
And it's unfortunate because it doesn't give your relationship a fighting chance. You could have had a great relationship, but your lack of disclosure and some of the burdens that come with that type of debt make it hard for you to enjoy each other. We have a question from one of the viewers. That the question is marriage counseling necessary? If so, why or why not?
I believe premarital counseling is necessary and post-marital marriage counseling is very necessary. Here's why I say that. In premarital counseling, if you have a good counselor, they need to ask the hard questions, or they need to help you to ask the hard questions. You need to discuss your finances, your credit score, your debt, the payments on your car, the apartment. You need to be able to put everything on the table. And many times people do not ask those questions. Intimacy, as far as relationships that you have been in, are you living together? What you need to get all of these things worked out. The babies, the children, all of that is necessary. So many times people go into a marriage in emotions. I'm in love. I'm just in love. He just loves me. And I know how quick love can come to cold, don't touch me love. I've been around long enough to know, and I've seen it. I've seen people come into church and they just came back from the honeymoon, and one is in the north and one is in the south. I'm like, you just got back from your honeymoon. What's wrong? Well, on the honeymoon, they learned he likes to drink, and he never told me he likes to drink, and he kept ordering alcohol. I'm like, well, did you all not go out and date before? But he wasn't drinking like that. So it's now they're arguing, and they have not even been off the honeymoon. But those are things that they never talked about. Or he will say, oh, I wasn't expecting this on the honeymoon. I mean, coming off the honeymoon. For instance, I had a lady that came off the honeymoon. When she got back home, the ladies in the church came to collect the things they had bought for her husband as gifts. He was dating other people in the church, and so when she came back from her honeymoon, she came back thinking they're going to start a good relationship. The house was empty. The people came and took the things that they had bought him. That didn't last 6 months. That didn't work. She said, why would they take it? Are these not gifts? Why would they come and take a gift? It wasn't gifts. He had dated them and they were furnishing because they thought they were going to be the one. And so what happens? He marries somebody else from another church, brings her home, and when they get home, his home is ravished because somebody said, oh no, you're not going to treat me like that. So that's the kind of stuff that happens, Kathy, in relationships that people are not aware of, because in the counseling, nobody asks them anything. Some people don't even want to go to counseling. Then the post-marital counseling is this. Now you're living in a house together. Now you're together. What have you learned about each other? Are you okay? Where do you need help? One of the things my husband and I did, we have our pastor, and we asked our pastor to be the voice that we would hear. That when we weren't able to agree, or when I didn't want to hear what my husband had to say, or when he didn't want to hear what I have to say, there would be somebody that would help us see what needed to be said. And that third party is so critical in the first 5 years of marriage. Somebody that will say to you, no, Neville, you got to see it this way. Connie, nope, that's not the way it is. Connie, that's the way men behave. Neville, that's the way women behave. Because you don't know everybody. It takes time to know someone. And so when you have that experience of somebody that's been around or knows more about it than you, they're able to say to you, you need to hear it from this perspective. And so I believe in my heart, anybody getting married needs counseling. They need to sit together, do workbooks together. What do you like? How much do you make? Do you like to travel? I had a couple that got married, and after they got married, she found out her husband is afraid to fly. They don't get on a plane. Or a wife that's afraid to fly. And he's been traveling, all of a sudden that he comes brought, and now he's angry because he loves to go. But nobody even asked them these things to sit down and talk about. I really believe in my heart, Kathy, like I said, every marriage has its own DNA, and so is every relationship. Before you even desire to be married, what do you know about yourself? Do you get angry quickly? Are you a bitter person? Have you been wounded in past relationships? Are you going to let this man pay? Another thing, if the marriage has a part where somebody fails in the marriage, if you're going to stay in that marriage, you got to be able to forgive that person. If you can't forgive them, then you need to separate, because nobody wants to wake up every day and hear what mistake they made. It doesn't work like that. And so there's so many things in a relationship that we need a third voice sometimes. And it's so, but the Bible says to us so clearly that we have to be in one or two are gathered together. God is in the midst of us. But he says, confess your faults one to another so we can pray for one another. There, God told us, find a face, find somebody that you can talk to that's going to give you good counsel. And one of the things you want to have somebody that won't take sides. Have somebody that's going to tell you the truth and you not take sides and say, well, me and Pastor Neville's a buddy. This is what guys do. No, I don't want you. I want somebody who is going to tell us the truth. Connie, if you're wrong, you're wrong. Neville, if you're wrong, you're wrong. And let's apologize and let's fix it. We've got to find ways to have good conflict resolution in marriage. Not you shut down and move to the West Wing. Don't touch me for 6 weeks. Don't no man want to hear that. They want you to forget. You see, men forget. They let go quick because they like sex. So they're not going to be mad long. Women want to not talk for 6 weeks. It don't work in a marriage, baby. You're going to have to say, I'm sorry. I quickly let it go. Because so many times we just stop over little minute things. And so it's so important to have pre and post-marital counseling. Really is.
There's something you just said about, every relationship, marriage having its own DNA and really knowing about yourself. Have you been wounded? Are you carrying past hurts? And that kind of segues perfectly into the next question, because I want you to weigh in about how our past relationships, how we were brought up, how they shape us into who we become, and how they affect how we act and interact in our relationships.
Kathy, I've worked in deliverance ministry in over 20 years here in the city of Pittsburgh. And one of the things that I find is when somebody is wounded, they see things through colored glasses. If somebody has been cheated on before and they never handled the pain or dealt with the pain, once they start dating again, if that man even says hi to a woman, what was that about? Why you had to say hi? He can't live like, nobody wants to live like that. You need to address your own issues. You need to understand that. My husband and I had something that we decided when we first got married. My husband and I talked about pastoring in the church. And he said to me, he says, Connie, if you ever see me talking to a woman on a regular basis, somebody always coming up to me, or if you see me talking to a woman too long, just come and tap me on my shoulder. All he's telling me is that you're not comfortable with that. And from the beginning of our marriage, I never asked him for that. He said to me, I want to make sure you always feel safe with me. And so if I'm in church and one person, and we've had it, we had a lady that came to the church that like my husband, and she called the house and she wanted to speak to him. And I said, he's out. Can I take a message? And she's like, well, why would I need to talk to you? I want to talk to him. I said, well, I'm his wife. And I think it's good for you to talk to me. Is there something I can help with? And she said, oh, I think you must have problems with, I just think you have some problems with, and she just kept, I said, wait, what do I have problems with? She said, trust, that's the word. I said, honey, you called my home. You asking to speak to my husband. He's not here. And I'm asking you so politely, what is wrong? She said, well, he taught something in Bible class and he needs to answer it, not you. I said, well, when he comes back, I will let him know to give you a call, but I'm going to be on the line. Well, I was no more good after that. I was jealous. I was this, I was that. Kathy, I don't care. That's my husband. And I'm going to fight for him. So you're either going to have us both on the line, both in the office, or baby, go keep stepping. But you're not going to take him down like that. So that's how I feel about some of these relationships, Kathy, is that we really, really, really have to begin to know our relationships, know our spouses, know what God's called us to do. Because like I said, it has its own DNA. You are married to Reggie. You've got to know Reggie. It doesn't matter how cute the person that comes around, that's my spouse. One thing I'm not going to let you do is disrespect my marriage or dishonor me. When I call someone's home that's married and I'm speaking to the husband, I ask it, can I say hello to your wife? I want to make sure I say hello. I try my best to always make sure, even as their pastor, I am not on the phone with someone's husband and the wife is there at home. When he picks up the phone, I say, let me say hi to Mary and we'll get back to what I called about. It's just we have to learn as the church to walk in honor and respect to our leaders. Our pastors are not our buddies. They're not our hangout partners. I don't want to pastor like that. I want to walk with a level of respect and honor for my congregation. I want husbands to know I respect them. I want wives to know they can trust me with their husbands. I want that, because what goes around comes around. When you dishonor and disrespect someone's marriage, the same thing's going to happen in your marriage. And marriage, Kathy, takes work. You have to work on a marriage. It's not something you can just say, I'm married and I'm going off. It doesn't. You have to work on your marriage every day. And that is critical for us to do. And we need to show the next generation that marriage was God's idea and God said it was good. He said it was good. And we have to learn that marriage is also a mystery. And in order for two people to become one, it takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of time. And having a blended family does not make it easy. It takes more work. It really does.
We have another question from the viewers. And they're asking, do you think there are times when women just need to stay single? Are there times when you should just stay single?
Absolutely. Men and women. Everybody's not going to be married. The Bible shows us there. Well, you're not in the Bible. Everybody's not going to be married. You have to realize, and sometimes if you've been married before and then you realize, you know what? I like where I am. I like where I am. This is for myself. Let me talk about me. I travel extensively. I have to be married to the right person to be able to do that. Everybody's not going to want their wife gone every month, a week out of the month, 2 weekends or whatever. Everybody, and I've done over the last 8 years, I have done over 64,000 miles a year. In that kind of relationship, Kathy, you have to know it's solid. You have to know that the person that you're with is okay with it. And so if you have that's okay, that's good. But what about somebody who wants to travel and do things but feel like they're in a bondage because they're married? So if you know you want to do those things and your spouse don't want you to do it, why would you go into that kind of relationship? You have to make up in your mind, do I want to travel? Do I want to see the world? Do I want to live on my own? I don't feel like cleaning up with someone. I don't feel like cooking every day. You have to weigh it and say, do I really, really want to be in a relationship? Don't be in a relationship because you want to wear a white dress. Don't be in a relationship because you want a wedding day. Don't be in a relationship because you want some wedding cake. Let's go buy some. But don't get in a wedding just to have those things. Me and you can go do a cake tasting and we ain't going to get married, just going to taste cake. Listen, you don't have to do that to tie up your years and then take someone to a divorce. If you know you're not willing to make changes, listen, if you're a stubborn woman and you're not willing to make changes, listen, don't get married. Don't get married to have sex. Let's say that. Because a lot of people today want sex, and marriage is a good way to go about doing that. But then they don't like the person, and then they get married, and it's not what they thought it was going to be. So sometimes it's good to just say, you know what, Lord, me and you good. Stay single if you can.
I think too that it goes back to what you were talking about earlier about comparing. Sometimes your heart might really want to remain single, but you feel the pressure of comparing. It's like when you're single and you come to like a barbecue or a family function, the first thing people want to know, you dating, when you getting married, when you going to have some kids. It's like people don't celebrate that you are an accomplished, successful, content individual in your singleness the way they do marriage.
I hate to hear when somebody asks my daughter. I hate to hear when someone asks my daughter about her getting married. It's not that Brittany couldn't have already been married. She could have already been married. The possibilities was there, but she chose not to. She wasn't ready. I don't want to see somebody get married because somebody's telling you every week. Sometimes when I watch the Hallmark and Lifetime channel, women will even take somebody home to their family that they bought a boyfriend for the weekend. I'm just going to take you home, tell my parents we're dating. Don't put yourself under that kind of pressure. Be willing to say, I just don't want to be married. I'm enjoying life. If it happens, it happens. Don't ask me no more. Sometimes you need to tell people, stop it. Don't ask me no more. Whenever I'm ready to be married, that will happen. And if it never happened, I'm so good with Connie, leave me alone. You have to be willing to speak up for yourself. Marriage is not for everybody. I'd rather to see you single and happy than married looking like you done died and went to somewhere. Come on. You ever see somebody after they come back from a honeymoon, you think they're coming back, who they're excited, they're coming back, I don't know what, I don't, no, that's not what you want to look like. That's not what you want to do after a marriage. It's better for you to stay single than get married and ruin somebody else's life. Let the person go to somebody who's going to give them the time that they need. Stop wasting people's time when you know you're not really ready to be married. You just wanted the wedding day. That's the truth. And sometimes we just want to have,
But you know what I mean? But that's human nature. That's where we often find ourselves trying to balance the human aspects of who we are with the spiritual aspects of who we are. And sometimes they, like how Pastor Neville says, sometimes they collide and it doesn't work out the way that we thought because, our flesh kicks up. That's a reality. And how we choose to satisfy that sometimes doesn't always work out. I wanted to ask you too a question about how sometimes does it seem like we're more focused on the spiritual aspects of marriage than the practical human side. Like you'll hear so many people, men and women alike, talk about they're waiting on their spouse. They want a God-fearing man or woman. Perhaps they want to start ministry together. But from a practical aspect, just as you were saying, you travel, extensively, and just really how do you balance the spiritual with the practical, because both of them are present daily.
Well, one of the things I hear all the time from women as I travel, because most of you know, I do women conferences around the world. When I do my conference, one of the first questions I always hear is, why won't my husband pray with me or pray for me? Why do I always have to initiate prayer? Number one, that's one of the questions that I get. And I say to them people all the time, I don't know why people say that to me, because it makes it feel like they're asking me, does my husband pray with me every day? No, he doesn't. I pray every morning, and I know my husband has his prayer time. But if I want us to pray together, I will go to him and I'll say, babe, we need to pray over this matter or pray over that matter. And that's why I talk about studying your spouse. Every husband is not going to walk in. It's like Bishop Thornton. I love Bishop Thornton. That man can pray you onto the bench, pray you onto the chair. He just a prayer warrior. I just love to hear that man pray. For me to go to Pastor Neville and say, you need to pray like Bishop Thornton. That man just prayed you. Pastor Neville is a good prayer in his own right. He's amazing. He loves to pray. But it doesn't mean he's going to pray like someone else's spouse or pray for me like someone else's spouse do. No, I don't. I need to ask myself, can you get a prayer through? You see, we can get so deep, especially us women who've been in the church for a while. We can make everything so spiritual, but it's not spiritual. When I finish preaching, my husband don't want to hear what message I preach. He just want to know, you ready? Let's go down the road here, down the hall. He don't ask me nothing about the service. Baby, how was service tonight? He was like, I'm so glad you're home. And that's the end of the story. I know what he's saying when he says that. And so what we have to understand in our relationships is that when you're with someone, we can't make everything just scripture. My husband don't want me quote scripture to him. He don't want me to sing the songs of Zion to him. He don't. And when we're in an intimate place, we're not playing the worship songs. Kumbaya, we're not. He may put on Teddy Pendergrass. I don't know what he's gonna put on. He may put on a little slow jazz. Somebody help me tonight. I'm trying to get somebody to understand. We make everything so deep, Kathy. Oh, when my husband and I go into the secret place, baby, get out of that. Let's be real. Let's have a real talk. This is what real talk is all about. You may put on your TV, put the slow jazz on, light up the room with jazz. God is still in the room with you, honey, because you're in there. But some people would tell me, I had a lady that said, I'm a prophet, and when I'm getting ready to prophesy, my husband can't touch me. Girl, let honey touch me before I leave. I'm getting ready to go on the road. I don't know when I'm coming back. Touch me before I leave. We have to be real about life. Don't tell my husband, I'm getting ready to go prophesy, don't touch me. That's my husband. And I'm telling him, don't touch me. Suppose he did that to you. Babe, I'm getting ready to go to preach, don't touch me. I don't know where, I don't know what church they go to, but honey, no, honey, touch me. I really believe in my heart, Kathy. I hope I'm being real for somebody tonight. I really hope I'm being real because I hear this foolishness. This lady actually walks up to me and she said, "Oh, you're such a woman of God, and I know, and you must understand what I mean when I say, when I'm getting ready to preach, I tell my husband, don't touch me. I'm getting ready." And I'm sitting up there going, "You did what? You told your husband don't what? Because you're getting ready to preach?" I said, "Honey, I can't say it on here. Good night. I'm not going to talk about that no more." But Kathy, that's just how people are. They make everything deep. Kathy, it's not deep. It really isn't. God is with you. He is in you. And your marriage is God's idea. So he wants it to be good. He wants it to be laughter. He wants it to be fun. He wants to start in the kitchen and work all the way back to the bedroom. God wants to start. God is not, you're in your own house, your own space. And you've got to make it fun. And so many times, Kathy, you'll be surprised how many people say, "Oh my gosh, I'm ready to get out of this. I didn't know it was going to be like this." And that's how their relationship is. And Kathy, that's not God's idea for marriage. God don't want us to talk about we've got to worship in the bedroom and we got to worship in this and we got to worship in that. Honey, just be real. Sometimes just the man just want to put on a little jazz and just hug you. Come on. The lady just want to cuddle up with you. You know, I think we have to make it real. Life is real, and we need to talk about real stuff. We need to come. When the man walks home, you need to smell good. He don't need to see ashy feet. Oil your feet up. Fix yourself up. Come on. It's time for us to understand relationships are real. There's nothing like walking in and you're coming home from work and you're looking at your wife and the feet is ashy and this ain't intact. No. Are you coming in from work and your breath is bad? You want to, no, go brush. Come on back later. We've got to make stuff real. We have to make it like this is real life. You know, and I want us to understand, stop making everything so spiritual. I need to get 6 prayers in before I head down to the bedroom. Really? I need, Kathy, that's not what God wants in a relationship. God wants marriage to be fun. Make your husband want to come home. Bottom line.
But you know what though? I mean, you're saying it in a kind of funny way, but that's the beauty of our topic tonight, that every relationship has its own fingerprint. So what is works perfectly for you may not work out for
Don't
me.
work for
Like
me.
I'll give you a prime example. You always talk about you don't want to eat on paper plates. You want the china, you want the crystal. Don't matter whether you're having a Chipotle or whether you're having fine dining, you do not like paper plates. But let me tell you something, at my house, we got the Sam's thing of paper plates, and it's okay over here. So it just, the food tastes just as good. My husband is just as excited to have his dinner. And so that's the thing. It's like there are some things that are universal that we should all embrace if we're going to have a good relationship. We all should respect one another. We all should be mindful of each other's feelings and those kind of things. But then there are some things where what works for you don't work for me and vice versa. But the bottom line that I'm taking away from what you said tonight is that you've got to study your own mate, and
Yes.
you've got to come up with your own boundaries about what works best for the both of you in the confines of God's word.
Absolutely. And Kathy, this when you talk about paper plates, you're so right. I believe this. I don't spend all this money on China. I'm going to use you. That's me. My husband uses a paper plate every day. He don't want to do the dishes, so he don't. But I love China. But he never. Even when people get ready to serve me on a plate, my husband will stop them and say, don't put her food on that. She won't eat it on that. But he knows that. Even Prophet Remington, he's a part of our home. He's here with us. And when he gets ready to eat, he's just like my husband. They both get paper plates and they're just as happy to throw it in the garbage. But all of them know, oh, let's get mom her plate. And that's just it, Kathy. And he's just as happy to fix my food on a china, and he will know how to put it on. And I don't like plastic cups. Don't give me anything in plastic cups because I feel plastic cups hold stuff. So I don't use plastic cups either. But that's my own little idiosyncrasies, things that I just deal with. But I don't put that on anyone. I really don't. And when I go out to dinners or something like that, and they have a plate of pillow. I don't tell somebody, don't give me it. But at home, I think that my china needs to be used, because I paid for it. But those are some of the things. But you are so true, Kathy. If they take away anything from tonight, I want it to be, ask yourself, if you want to be married, am I ready to be married? Am I preparing myself to be married? Am I willing to change to be married? Because when you get married, you're going to have to change. If you've been handling your checkbook for all of your life, and all of a sudden now you got to give an account to your husband for how much money we spend and whatever, are you ready to do that? So I think that's the first thing. Number two, am I supposed to stay single? I need to ask myself those questions. And then number three, in marriage, it does have its own DNA, its own fingerprint. My marriage is like no one else's. I have to pray for mine to work every day, that I am able to, and I can do everything right and it still don't work. But I can only do the best that I can. And I have to be willing to make the necessary changes and to study my husband. As we're getting older now, we're both in our 60s, and as we're getting older, there's certain things now he realized I don't tolerate, I don't put up with. And I realize with him also, as he's getting older, there's certain things he don't want to do. So now we're going into another season of our relationship. As we're getting older, there's certain things that I just don't do anymore. I'm just not. Okay, let me tell you, I'm not jumping out no bungee jump. I'm not doing anything. I'm not going on the most that I will do is the jet ski. It's on the water, it's low, but don't ask me to jump off no hills. Don't ask me to go up on anything up high. I'm not doing any of that. I'm too old. The bones can't do that. But I get on a jet ski. I love to have fun. We were just traveling. I love to have fun. I love boat rides and all of that. But there's just some things at 66, Kathy, I'm not doing anymore. And so now we're learning each other again in another season of marriage. We've been married 22 years. A week ago, it was 22 years. And now we're in our 60s. We're realizing, wait a minute, we're changing again. I've gone through change of life, and my husband is going through his own changes. And we're like, wow. So now we have to learn each other. I remember when my sister has gotten to a certain age, she was having the sweats. And her husband said to me, he said, I sleep with the window open, I have the air conditioner on, then you close the window, then I get the blanket on, and then she throw the blanket off, and then I have to leave one foot out of the bed. He was just telling me, in this season of their life, they've been married over 40 years, they are learning each other all over again. Because now she's going through change of life. She wants to have one foot out of the bed so it stays cool, one foot under the cover. Then he wakes up in the middle of the night, he can't find the cover. She threw it on the floor, and he realized he's freezing because she opened the window. And so he's saying, Connie, I'm learning that now I have to learn her all over again. How can I help her through this season? Do I need to sleep in my pajamas? Do I need to have a thicker blanket? Do I need, So, Kathy, marriage moves in seasons, and every season we've got to study each other if it's going to work. What worked in our 20s is not working in our 60s. We can't just, let's go like we did in our 20s. No, we got to think. I told my daughter the other day, she was like, Mom, come on, we got to go. I said, I have to talk to the knee and let it know that I'm ready to move. Because if I move off without talking to it, it might just go on me. She said, I never heard nobody. I said, I'm telling you, I'm 66 and this knee does its own thing. She said, Mom, yours. I said, but no. I want you to understand, as my daughter, before I would be like, grab the kids, grandkids, let's go. I said, but no, Brittany, understand. Give me a minute. I can't go like I used to go. And she said, I got it. So that's what I'm saying when I talk about our own DNA. Marriage moves in so many different phases, so many different seasons. And now that you're going to your 50s, you all are going to see a whole different way of living. When you hit your 60s, there's another way of living. And then now we got to prepare for our 70s because there's another way of living. It changes, Kathy. Every 10 years of your marriage, you're going to find yourself in different phases of marriage.
That's so good, because it really does show the need to really seek God about who your mate is, so that you're not just choosing somebody that works for who you are today. But if you're planning on staying together until death do you part, you need somebody who can deal with the you that you will become. It's just as you were saying about the person doesn't have money today, but maybe they'll have money later. Or maybe you like to party today, but 20 years from now, you might be the pastor of a church. Do your husband still party in the club, or is he growing and moving with you? So everybody's got to kind of seek their mate so that they can walk the long road with them and go through all of those changes and still love and be a couple.
When when people come and talk about marriage, one of the first thing I ask them, the person you're marrying, are you marrying them for where you are now or for where you're going? That's one of the first questions I ask in marriage counseling. This person that you're telling me that God told me is your husband or your wife, are you marrying her for your emotions you have right now? Or can you see down the road that this is the person that will adjust, that will grow, that will be able to go with you through the hard times? If you lost a job, have you all talked about that? If you can't be intimate for a season, have you talked about that? And, sickness come. How are you going to handle me, babe? When my husband was diagnosed with cancer about 5 years ago, Kathy, I saw my husband. My husband was never sick, never had a cold, never had anything. And one Christmas Eve, my husband said, I have a pain. And from that Christmas Eve until the end of the following year, it was a nightmare for us. He lost 80 pounds in about 90 days, and things began to change so rapidly for him. And what I realized is that he needed me more than he ever needed me before. He didn't need Pastor. He needed Connie. He needed his wife. And I packed my bag, checked into that hospital room. And I pastored from there. I worked from there because I wanted to make sure that when he looked up, he could see me and that he wouldn't be afraid. Because as tough as men are, when sickness comes, they're just like little kids. They need you. And I walked through that with him. And I fought with nurses, fought with doctors because they told me he wouldn't live. They told me he would never survive this. This kind of cancer, you don't survive. And I said, the devil is a liar. I'm going to sit right here in this room and fight for him to live. My husband is alive today because of the fight that we had to put in that hospital. And so you have to be willing. You have to be willing, Kathy, when you get married, for the good, the bad, and the ugly. Relationships are not easy, but they are worth fighting for. I know we've got to go. I know time is getting to a close, so I'm going to turn it over to you, Kathy.
Well, it was nice having you on the opposite end of the equation tonight. For those of you who have joined us tonight, please tune in again next week. Pastor's going to be back, and next week we're going to be talking about boundaries. That is something that Pastor has taught a lot on over the years. Having healthy boundaries is necessary in your personal life, in your business, in your ministry. And so next week we're going to be asking questions to Pastor about boundaries, how to establish them, how you know when you have good ones, how you know when you don't have enough, when you know what to do when you don't have any. But that's going to be next week. Again, thank you all for being with us. God bless you and keep you until we meet again. Good night.